What do racetracks and mortgages have in common? More than you'd probably think. Strap in. Today, we're going to go full throttle, and I'm going to share with you some lessons from spending the weekend with my son at the racetrack. For the record, he races. I don't. I am the sponsor and the pit crew. Hey, I'm Scott Peckford. This is the Avid Mortgage Brokering Podcast. And this weekend, I spent some time with my son at the racetrack. This is something that he started 2 years ago, and absolutely love going to the track with him. And I thought, there's so many interesting insights that I get from doing these things that I'm like, these apply directly to your mortgage business. And so I'm going to share those with you today. Before I jump into that, I want to give a shout out to our title sponsor, Finmo. Finmo is a Canadian mortgage application, document collection, submission platform designed specifically for Canadian borrowers. It's very easy for borrowers to use. It's got some cool features like smart docs, knows what docs your client needs based on how they fill out the app. It's got smart submission notes, pulls key data from the app, and it's connected to Lender Spotlight, which is the best tool for searching rates and guidelines. And honestly, people that I've talked to that have said they've tried this is like, man, it's just so easy. It's so simple. Check it out, lendesk.com/Finmo. Get them to give you a demo. It's probably the best way to see it in action. All right. So what does racetracks and mortgages and everything have in common? So, my son 2 years ago asked me, he said, hey, Dad, I want to get a motorcycle license. And he was 16 at the time. And I thought, I used to be a paramedic. And I thought, man, I don't know about that. And so I was talking to a friend who used to race motorcycles. And he said, what you should do is you should get him to a racetrack and let him try racing. And I'll get into this mortgage stuff in a second. I'm just giving you the backstory of this. So he said, you should let him try the racetrack because there's a bunch of reasons why that would actually be beneficial. And I said, okay, well, tell me more. And he said, well, first off, at the racetrack, you can get expert coaching. So you can learn how to actually handle the motorcycle. 2, he's going to crash for sure. And he has crashed, I think, 5 or 6 times. But at the racetrack, it is much safer to crash than on the street, as I used to know as a paramedic. And then number 3, he said the racetrack is so much more intense and the dopamine level is so much higher that the street is actually boring after being on the track. And I thought, okay, well, this makes sense. Let's give it a go. And so I said to him, look, here's the deal. I'm not prepared to let you get a motorcycle to ride on the street yet, but I am prepared to do this whole racetrack thing with you if you want. Of course, he jumped at the idea. And so every time that we go down to the track, there's a track day before the race days. And I have been getting him a coach every single time. And these are coaches who are really, really good riders who've been riding. Some of these people riding for 20 years. I would have never seen them in the ambulance because when they ride in the street, they understand how to ride. They understand how to avoid accidents and they get their thrills out on a racetrack. And think about if you're on a racetrack, if you slide out, most of the times you low side, you slide out like he's done. He slides out, looks up. Maybe there's something broken on the bike that we got to fix. Gives me a thumbs up and it's all good. You do that in the street. And unfortunately, there is a telephone pole or a park bench with a realtor's picture on it. And you hit that thing and you go from, I would have been okay if I didn't hit that. And now this is a bad thing. And so I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I got him coaching and I learned, I didn't know anything about motorcycles. I had a motorcycle briefly when I was 19 and I first became a paramedic and I scared myself and I said, I'm not sure about this. And so in any case, there's been so many cool things that I've picked up from this. So the first is, which is interesting. So he has a race bike. It's just a little 250 and there's no speedometer, which is the first thing you think like, is you're racing. Shouldn't you know your speed? Actually, no. And so even when they have people come on the track, so you can bring your street bike or whatever on, and these are street bikes. It's just to put in your mind, this is those crotch rockets as they call them that run really fast. That's what we're talking about. It's on pavement. It's not dirt. It's not a dirt bike or a motocross or something. It's strictly street motorcycles. And when you come on the track with your motorcycle, you have to cover up the speedometer with tape. You're not allowed to have the speedometer. And it's like, I asked, well, why is that? That seems kind of weird. You're racing. Shouldn't you know how fast you're going? He goes, no, because if you look down, if you're looking at your speed, you're not looking where you're going. And if somebody slows down in front of you, you're going to crash into them. So it is dangerous to look down and not be paying attention to where you're going. And so I thought, isn't that interesting? And what I think is, and where I feel like that relates to your mortgage business is that sometimes mortgage brokers, when we look down for us is looking at, oh my gosh, I have this deal that I'm working on. I lost it. And we're so focused on the deal, that one that's in front of us, the one that we're either working to try and solve or the one that we're going to maybe lose or the one that we lost, that we're not actually looking down the track far enough. And it actually causes us all kinds of problems. To go fast, you actually don't want to look down. The speed takes care of itself. Is the insight of the lesson I got from this. And it's the same thing in your business. The leads take care of themselves if you stick to the proper activity. So in racing, it's, am I braking at the right time? Am I entering the corners at the right angles? Am I leaning over properly in the corners as I go? And you're doing all these activities. And if you do, the speed takes care of itself. In your mortgage business, it's, Do I have a discipline of prospecting every day? Am I prospecting every day? Do I have that built into my schedule? Do I, do I make sure that I have some kind of a follow-up plan with anybody that I have got in front of that I'm not getting business from? What does that look like? There's all these little things. If you take care of those activities. So recently at our brokerage, we rebooted something I've done when I had a training company called Game of Phones. And Game of Phones is this idea that I got from some friends. And we basically were like, hey, how do we motivate ourselves to do the activities we don't want to do? Let's make a game out of it. And we focus on the activities, which is doing the calls or sending the DMs or sending the videos, whatever that prospecting activity is, because it can be more than just calls right now in the current way that people communicate. But if you're not doing those things, the leads don't matter. And the thing is, you're doing those well. If you do lose the lead, it's like, oh, well, it's no big deal. It's like, I got another one coming anyway because I've got my consistent prospecting happening. So just like on the racetrack or on your bike, you do not want to be looking down at the speed because you're actually not going to do as well. You're likely going to crash. It's the same thing in your mortgage business. Don't be looking at that one deal. You got to be like, I got to keep making sure I'm looking down what's coming next. How am I building my pipeline? So it's the first sort of lesson or takeaway. The second is to use video and record your activities. So my son this weekend, he went down and he actually broke his own, he hasn't been doing this that long, but he broke his personal record twice, his personal best. And one of the things that I did for him is I saw some guys that were ahead of him that were more experienced in riding, some of them running for years. And I would record their line. So when you come into a corner, I would record where they started to brake on the video and I'd record where they would enter the corner and where they would turn and get back on the throttle. And then I showed him and he's like, oh, okay, I can do that. And then he made some adjustments and he was able to get faster. And so, the video cameras are one of the most powerful things that we should be using in our business. And I think that mortgage brokers who are not recording their discovery calls, recording their client conversations to use it as a way to improve, you are literally missing out. You probably don't even know some of the little errors you're making in those things that you could improve dramatically with a bit of recording. And especially now with the technology, not only can you record it, you can drop it into an AI tool that will actually summarize and clean it all up for you to be like, okay, where was I getting off track? What was I saying? What were my questions? What was the frame I was using? You will get better so much faster than just doing it. And, the discovery call in particular, I think is one of those absolutely critical parts of the mortgage business, of your mortgage process, which is really that first conversation. And if you're not recording it and looking at that regularly, you're probably, when I see somebody go, oh my gosh, I lost the file. I can't believe it. I spent all this time working and, I did all this work. I'm like, you lost it on the first call. You didn't even have it. And because you don't even know what you're doing, you're not paying it. You're not checking you're not checking just like on the racetrack. You're not looking at the angle you're coming into that corner. No wonder it's not working. You've got a fundamental problem and it's probably diagnosable with a video recording yourself. So practically speaking, how would you do that? So if you're, a mortgage broker and you're talking to a client, just say, hey, look, I record all my calls for just to keep track of for note-taking purposes. Because it's true, note-taking purposes is a fair one to do it. Some of these tools, there's Zoom, there's Firefly.ai, there's a few different ones you can use. We've used Gong. And so we've implemented this in our brokerage when we do calls with people that want to talk to us about the company. And it's actually improved. Even just the process of recording has improved the conversion rate, which is pretty interesting, right? Just the fact that you're recording it means you show up different. You're like, oh, okay, I'm going to be recording this, so I have to show up differently. And so you'll start to improve even before you start putting in improvements or reviewing it. So that would be the second thing I would encourage you to do is record your activities, especially those key things. So the first is this, the speed takes care of itself. So make sure you're looking where you want to go in your mortgage business and don't get hung up on that one file in front of you. Second is record your activities. And then third, and this is probably should have made this one first, but I ended up writing down third. Coaching is hands down the fastest way to get good fast. So my son started this. He's ridden a dirt bike on on trails, but he'd never ridden a street bike before. And I remember the first time I took him down, he went to race school, which had put him through some training and stuff. And there's all kinds of people there. And some of them have like 20 years riding experience. And he was very intimidated. He said to me, Dad, I've never ridden a street bike. And so before he even tried this, I rented one because I was like, I don't know if he's going to even like this. Turns out he loves it. And so for the first time I rented the street bike for him, he went and he's like, so the day before he goes on the track, let's say mini track to learn, he had to go ride it just to see what it felt like. And then by the end of that first day, he was dramatically better than most of these people who had been riding a lot of times for years. And it's not because he's like a prodigy or anything. It's just that he came as a blank slate. He's just like, tell me what to do and I will do it. He didn't have 20 years of riding experience doing it the wrong way. It's kind of like the same in golf. So people have like 20 years of swinging the wrong way and they go to see a coach and like, man, I don't know what to do with you. This is going to take months for us to unprogram this terrible swing that you have to make it more consistent. It's the same in your mortgage business. I've met people in the business who, 20 years in the mortgage business, still, struggling along around 10 to 15 million a year, never able to get out of it. Right. And the only reason that they've had even a better year is because it was the COVID thing and everybody got a lift, or their mortgage amounts have gone up. But they literally, if you were to measure the units, they've actually not gotten better. They've gotten worse. They're only getting away with it because of the fact that there's the actual unit, the average per file has gone up. And I always say, they got 1 year of experience 20 times. They literally have not improved anything. It's like, you probably know people like this. They've golfed for years and years and years and they're no better. You're like, you golf all the time. How can you not be any better at golf if you golf all the time? It is the same thing in your mortgage business without getting somebody coaching. And I think coaching is perspective. So it's one thing to look at a video of yourself. You look at it. It is another to have someone else look at that video or someone else to give you perspective. And I have invested personally a lot of money in coaching over the last decade in particular. And every single investment in coaching that I have personally done has given me another level up, another perspective that I didn't have. And my only regret is that I don't live in regret. But some of my personality is like, hey, I just, I'm always about what's right now. What can I do? But if I do have a little regret or something, if I could go back and give myself some advice, I would tell myself, get coaching sooner and listen to the coaches, because I definitely was the kind of person who's like, well, yeah, that works for you. But, I'm different. I'm a snowflake. It's like, no, you're not. You're not a snowflake. Learn the way that they show you how to do it. When you have mastered it, you've got this thing figured out, then you can apply your own personality, your own creativity to it. But don't say that if somebody has done something significantly better than you and they're trying to help you, and you're like, well, that's not going to work for me. You're full of it. You're full of crap. And the people that I have found, I've been coaching, when I had a coaching company. Now I do coaching within the brokerage, but the people that I coach that just come in and say, just tell me what to do and I'll follow it. Those people, hands down, every time. Not that I have it all figured out. I do not have it all figured out. But what happens is that they learn from all of my mistakes, all of my lessons quicker, and then they get to another level faster. Many of them have gone way past me. I met a guy once at a conference. He came up to me and he's like, hey, Scott, I want to shake your hand. I'm like, cool. He goes, when I started working with you, I was doing 25 million a year. Last year, I did 250 million. Well, I'm like, well, dude, first off, the student has passed the master. I never did 250 million. And so we took a photo, he walked away, and I was like, wow, that's something. This guy took some ideas that we gave him and applied them and made it even better. I'm choking up here. I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that. So in any case, coaching is critical. My son is like, he is really good at racing, even though he is very inexperienced in terms of seat time in a motorcycle compared to other people, because we get him coaching every single time we go to the track. And every time he just levels up. Same thing in your mortgage business. The fastest way to level up is to get coaching. All right. So that's my takeaways from being at the track. There's many other cool things about being at the track that I could share with you. Maybe if we ever sit down over a beer, I'll tell you about them. And I'm not I might get a motorcycle now, I'm thinking, but I would definitely, I have very limited times I would ride it. And I got a whole thing around it. And in any case, so let me give you a quick recap on this. I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself actually that you can apply to your business. Because this one's it's tactical, but it's also, it's more to hopefully get you to think. So, questions to ask yourself are, as I said, the leads take care of themselves. But what is the activities that you need to be doing to be looking down the track far enough so that whatever the speed is today or whatever the deal's going on, that you can actually it's not going to mess you up, because it will screw you up when you start looking at that too much. Second, where can you use video to give yourself an unfair advantage? So what can you record? Is it the discovery call? Is it your first conversation with a real estate partner? What are those recordings that you can use to improve? Maybe it's your scripting, your practice with a partner. And then finally, where can you go to get perspective, some coaching perspective outside, whether it's your broker owner, friend, somebody who's further ahead than you. I just encourage you to get that, because there's no point in repeating the same mistakes, because you're just wasting time. And I still believe, even though it's been a crazy market, this is a market where the legends are made, where people are like, I'm going to come into this market. There's people coming into this market right now that don't know any better, that literally are like, it is what it is. And they're going out there and they're crushing it. And then there's other people who've been through a boom market and they're like, oh, no fair. I can't stand this. It's like, listen, if you want to have a successful business, nobody's going to give it to you. This is still a great market. Is it harder? Hell yes, it's harder. Are you going to lose more files? Yes. And you know what? I can tell you, the people that I know that are doing hundreds of millions and they're doing less than that now, they're doing a little, less, they lose more files than you. Right. So the person that averages 100 million a year and you're like, oh my gosh, I lost a file. They are losing more files. But you know what? They're figuring out and they're adapting, and they're not actually letting it wear them down so that they end up quitting the business, because this is still a fantastic business. Hope you find that helpful. Thanks for listening. And as I always say, there's no problem in your mortgage business that someone else hasn't already solved. Your problem is who's got the answer, who's got the solution. Hopefully this podcast can be one of those things for you. If you found this useful, please go leave a review, share it with a friend, listen to it, and go to the racetrack sometime. It's a ton of fun.